Do you remember Laquan McDonald? This was a case a long time ago. I think it's 2014. He was shot by the police, and the police said we shot him in self-defense. And they did an autopsy, and the autopsy brought this into question. And you remember that Obama and Eric Holder and the Obama's corrupt Justice Department was making a big deal about any shooting that happened between the police and a person of color, even if the police officer was black. It didn't matter. They were constantly accusing police departments around the country of being racist, even though every study shows that the police do not use more force with black suspects than they do with white suspects. They don't use more fatal force with black suspects than with white suspects. But the feds were using this as a way to take over police departments, and the police departments were starting to dial back their enforcement, and that meant crime was going up in the worst neighborhoods. So all of it was a complete boondoggle. As far as I'm concerned, it was done to distract people from the failures of the Obama administration. So the Laquan shooting, right? It's the typical thing, right? The newspapers are putting out pictures of Laquan and his graduation, and he's an honor student. It's like, you remember, if you've read Bonfire of the Vanities, you know the routine. Turned out in the autopsy, he had angel dust in his system, so he was probably on drugs. But it also turned out that the wounds were not consistent with wounds of self-defense. Plus, there was a dashboard cam, and this was the big thing. There was a dashboard cam video, and Rahm Emanuel and basically the entire police establishment, this is before, I should point out, this is before Eddie Johnson was the police chief, the entire police establishment suppressed this video. When the video came out, it showed that the suspect had been walking away when they opened fire. One of the police officers went to prison for murder, and there were protests all over town. And then Emanuel had a very difficult time re-winning the nomination for mayor because leftist candidates almost forced him out. When he got back in, the police superintendent was replaced, and the state's attorney lost the election, and this woman Fox came in. So she was sent in on this wave of reaction to the police, to a police shooting that looks like it was not as good as it should have been. And now now they've got this hellion leftist who's got ties to the Obama family, basically shooting down anything with another guy, Smollett, who also has ties to Michelle Obama. So it's like everybody in Chicago. This is the entire Chicago way. That's what they call it, the Chicago way. And, George Soros was in there donating money to help get Fox elected, hundreds of thousands of dollars, according to Breitbart. So this is a political war in a dirty town. And listen, I love the cops. I really do support the cops, but the Chicago police and the Chicago crime, the way Chicago crime is, there's something truly wrong in that city, and it's all Democrats. It is all Democrats. And we talked about this yesterday, right? This is the way a Democrat city is run. You can't say, oh, the police are the good guys, like I want to say. You can't say necessarily the police are the good guys and the state attorney the bad guys. It's all a question of influence. It's all a question of power centers. It's all a question of which part of the Democrat Party is fighting with which part. And that was the Obama White House, the IRS that silenced conservative voices during the re-election campaign, the State Department that went around lying about Benghazi and that was headed by Hillary Clinton with her classified information on her cell phone, basically where anyone could get their hands on it, the Justice Department that did this whole Russian collusion thing against Donald Trump, spying on an opposition candidate during an election year. Just an amazing kind of corruption. And yesterday, by the way, listening to the show is like listening to the news a day ahead of time. I went after the press on Monday. They went after the press later on in the day. I started talking about the Obama administration. Here's Donald Trump yesterday being questioned about where he thinks this Russian collusion narrative came from.
They and others created a fraud in our country with this ridiculous witch hunt, where it was proven very strongly, no collusion, no obstruction, no nothing. We are doing so well. We've never probably had a time of prosperity like this. It's been great.
You're accusing the people who launched the investigation into your campaign of treasonous acts. How high up do you think it went?
I think it went very high up. I think what happened is a disgrace. I don't believe our country should allow this ever to happen again. This will never happen again. We cannot let it ever happen again. It went very high up and it started fairly low, but with instructions from the high up. This should never happen to a president again. We can't allow that to take place.
Do you think it reaches the west wing of the Obama White House?
I don't want to say that, but I think you know the answer.
He's asked if this conspiracy came from the West Wing of the Obama White House. In other words, did it start with Obama? Of course it started with Obama. You know, what on earth do you think the Justice Department went after? They started investigating Trump's campaign without Obama knowing about it. Of course it did, but Trump's not saying it. But, you know, and people are saying, wow, that's an amazing thing for him to say. It's an obvious thing for him to say. This is the kind of corruption that Democrats live off. Every city, every Democrat city is run like this, almost every one of them. And you know, they pick on Donald Trump, rightly, by the way, for associating guys like Michael Cohen. I mean, guys like Michael Cohen, listen, I know these guys from New York. They're just these make-believe tough guys. They always fold when the law comes after them. And, you know, you shouldn't be hanging out with them. It says something bad about Trump that he was. But then just take Michael Avenatti, now under arrest and charged with this kind of grotesque, gangster-esque, extortion of Nike, telling them they had to hire him for $10-20 million to clean out, or he was going to destroy them. Now he's giving press conferences where he's releasing this information he threatened to release. But just listen to the way Avenatti was treated by the press. Okay, when they're attacking, the next time they're attacking Trump for associating with Michael Cohen, listen to the way they treated Avenatti.
Stormy Daniels' lawyer, Michael Avenatti, is laying down the law. And is he really thinking about running for president?
Joining me now live, the man himself, Michael Avenatti.
Let's talk to somebody who understands the system very well. Michael Avenatti.
He's Donald Trump's worst nightmare. Michael Avenatti.
Michael, thanks so much for being
Morning.
here. Did you talk to Stormy Daniels last night? What was her reaction?
Did the president just get a new challenger for 2020? Stormy Daniels' lawyer, Michael Avenatti, may have just tossed his hat into the ring.
Looking ahead to 2020, one reason why I'm taking you seriously as a contender is because of your presence on cable news.
First, let me take a moment to brag on my former student. This dude right here, I think of him as in a Justice League with Robert Mueller to save our democracy.
A 9-year-old boy has been reunited with his mother in Guatemala. And the person who helped make this happen, Stormy Daniels' lawyer and potential presidential candidate, Michael Avenatti.
So when we're talking about a corrupt Democrat machine, we're not just talking about Chicago, we're talking about Obama's Washington, and we're talking about the press, because it's all the same thing. You know, Stephen Law has a piece, he's the head of a GOP PAC, and he has a piece in the Wall Street Journal saying that Democrats now are so certain they'll win the White House in 2020 that they aren't only measuring the drapes, they're contemplating an extreme makeover of government that would advance and lock in an ambitious progressive legacy. They proposed H.R. 1, they passed H.R. 1, which would make it almost impossible to stop fraudulent voting, almost impossible to criticize government people. I mean, it was really just trying to bring back the Citizens United, to get rid of the Citizens United case. They want to stack the Supreme Court. They want to get rid of the Electoral College. They want America to be Chicago. They don't want Al Capone. They want all Capone. And they're really going to work at it if they win the majority in 2020.